What does it mean that Warsaw was a Jewish city like many other big Jewish cities? Not big, but it was forbidden for Jews to cultivate the land, to grow farm animals, to cultivate the land, to be farmers. It was forbidden for them. They had to live in settlements, and those settlements they turned into small cities, and that's it. They were forced into other professions, either commerce or being a cobbler, a tailor, and so on. It was forbidden for them to cultivate the land, and only after the Soviets came to power, where there were kolkhozes organized and so on, it became something that's allowed. Otherwise, they didn't exist. Why was there such an attitude towards Jews? Why were they driven into ghettos? Because they're against all religions. If you feel that I'm the bearer of a spiritual value, and by that I stand in your way of you proving yourself to be the bearer of spiritual value, then you have to eradicate me. You have to constantly show and prove to yourself, to all the others, to your kids, that I'm ignoble, that I'm nothing, that I'm worthless, and so on. Why? Because look what the Creator allows me to do to Him, because the truth is on my side, and so on. Well, that's natural. That's a very normal, egoistic attitude towards your ideological enemy. And what did Europe do even worse? Well, in Russia there were pogroms and so on. People were also killed. But in Europe, entire Jewish cities were simply eradicated, burned. In England, for instance, I was in such places where simply Englishmen used to push all the Jews in the area into a synagogue and simply burn them alive. What actually motivates people on a subconscious level to want to destroy spirituality, or what? Subconsciously, what moves them? It's the source of our ego, which is actually spiritual. It can't agree that in the world there exists such a representative of spiritual powers. People simply can't handle that. Anti-Semitism, you see that it has no rational roots. They can justify their actions in any way, but that source of things, it hangs down from the upper world. And it comes from the oppositeness between Jacob and Esav, Iswa. And you can't escape that. It will be that way till the final correction. It will become much more acute in future disputes between Christianity, Islam, Judaism, until Kabbalah shall prevail. But the Jews themselves, they don't understand why is there so much pressure put on them. They understand it very well, but what can you do? It's the law of nature. It's the power of nature that this way targets the uncorrected people in hate towards those in whom exists. They themselves don't know what exists in them. It's the embryo, the source of the higher soul. And we can't agree with that. We hate ourselves, the Jews. For this reason, we don't like ourselves because we're uncorrected. Because we're uncorrected. So I'm saying the Jews themselves, they don't know. So what is the result of not knowing? I'm telling you that it's the law of nature. That's how the powers of nature are working. Doesn't matter if they know it or not. The anti-Semitists don't know why they don't like Jews. They invent different excuses for themselves, and the Jews don't know why they're being disliked either. And they also invent excuses for themselves. And that's a result of two opposite forces in our world. But in our world, the representative of the spiritual force are the Jews. in order to present yourself as the representative of the spiritual powers instead of him, you have to as if destroy him, but not entirely, but to leave them as an example to show, look at the state he's in. It means that I'm right, I won, I'm higher, and so on. Will this dilemma be solved when the Jewish people will understand, acknowledge their role? Yes. Or only when they will all be eradicated will they understand? No, that's impossible. Impossible. They will acknowledge their mission, their purpose, and they will reveal it to the world. They will present it to the world, and then to the extent to which each has participated in the eradication of that, he will have to undergo that entire process within himself in a reversed fashion, so to speak, because the recognition of evil, it has to undergo through all the vessels, through all the phases of the ego in its reversed manner. So it's actually a great tragedy of humanity that throughout thousands of years, they've shown hate, gradual hate, throughout many years towards the Jewish people, since they're as if the unsuccessful representatives of God on earth, and now it has to rewind, so to speak, in all the people. And to the extent to which they rejected and burned and so on, they'll have to experience all that upon themselves. I don't know how, in a moral, spiritual way, not physically, but it's by no means easier in order to correct, because nothing undergoes simply so directly from one end to the other. We have to reveal all this evil and to acknowledge it. Thus it says in the book of Zohar that any small blow that a non-Jew brings upon the Jew, also within ourselves, the non-Jew, the Gentile in me, brings that blow upon the Jew in me, meaning the ego gives a blow to the attribute of bestowal and love. It will have to accept it, get it in return, and undergo it as the recognition of one's own evil through tremendous inner suffering, and only afterwards to start the correction. That's the law of nature, and you can't do anything about it, you can't change it, so it's all ahead of us.